Mumbomania. This is a fan-made Banjo-Kazooie game developed on PlayStation's Dreams. This is a platform for users to create games, kind of like Super Mario Maker, but a whole lot more. A few weeks back, I played Mumbomania for the first time, and to our great surprise, Eupholace, the lead developer of this game, was hanging out in the chat. Afterwards, I had the absolute pleasure of having an in-depth conversation about his game, and he showed me some amazing behind the scenes. I didn't realize our conversation lasted over 2 hours, so I have chapters below for each question and talking point. But that just goes to show our love for games and the process in creating a game. And right before diving in, please show some love and support to Eupholace. Again, it's a fan-made game, so his hard work was done completely during his spare time. And of course, a special shout out to the Bosky channel members for supporting this channel. All right, let's get into it.
I had genuinely the most fun time playing Mumbomania, and I thought it was extra cool that you, the developer, were there in the chat to watch along and offer a couple tips here and there. I'm sure it was very entertaining on your end just to see yet another person play your game. I've got plenty of fun questions for you, and I mean, ultimately, I'm just so excited to hear your process in making this game. I recall you said this was 14 months plus 800 hours of work, yeah?
Yeah, something like that. I think like it is important to clarify that, I mean, it's not that it was like a full-time job, right? Because I have my regular job. I work at Moon Studios where I'm doing like level design there. So that takes up a lot of my time, other life things and whatever. You know, there were periods where I think especially like during the summer, it was like more just kind of like hit or miss, like work on it when I could. But yeah, I think like from start to finish, 14 months, 800 hours was my contribution. I had a couple other collaborators who I'm not sure exactly how much time they invested, but yeah, it was 800 for me.
Wow, that makes perfect sense, especially if it's not your full-time focus, right? It's fully your spare time when you can work on it. That makes perfect sense. Do you recall how many other people contributed to this?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a bit of an interesting question. So in terms of like official collaborators, I was the person who started the project, and then there were two other people that came on. There was Piece of Craft was the first collaborator that I had. I kind of knew about him through the Dreams community. He had basically helped with like some of the logic, some of the animation. One of the biggest things he did that was super valuable was the actual model for Banjo. The first one that I had done looked like a little bit cursed. It was not very great, so he redid that for me. It looks fantastic. And then we had someone come on to do the music. That's Duckonomics, also from the Dreams community. Both of them have a Twitter, so show your support. Go follow them. They're awesome. But yeah, they were the two that were kind of like, you know, helping fill in my weaknesses, basically. And then the interesting thing about Dreams is like, there's basically like a whole, they call it like the Dreamiverse, where people can upload like community assets, like all sorts of things, music, sculptures, even like pieces of logic and things like that. So although that was like the core three, and for the most part, like everything, or not everything, but like 90% of everything was made by us. There are like a few things in here, like I can even just show on my screen right here, like mostly little pieces of set dressing, things like the starfish, for example, I didn't create. You have things like in the water, like the coral and things like that. The coral was not something that I made. Both these kind of like tubular pieces of coral, as well as these kind of like rounded ones right here. So it's things like that where, like, ultimately there are some things that I just don't want to invest my time to do like every single little thing. Usually for the bigger assets I do. Just for the sake of like you want everything to be as cohesive as possible. The problem with borrowing other assets is like, you know, art direction tends to get weaker because it's not stuff that was like designed with this in mind. But if you factor that stuff in, back to your original question, it technically blows up the credits to like a pretty large number. Like I think if you just go and scroll through like the Dreams credit page, it shows everybody that was like involved as far as like, you know, people's creations that were put in here. So short answer is 3 people, long answer is 3 people, and then like a bunch of assets made by, you know, a bunch of people in the awesome community.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, this just is a like microscope example of the process that it takes to make games or films or animation, like animated work, like there's folks that play a larger role, but there's a lot of people that will play medium-sized or small-sized roles. And I really love the way that you put it, the kind of like your weak areas, which like is very important, because as well as we are with one thing, we're not always going to be perfect at other areas, and that goes for so many things. I see it in myself. Like, I'm very good at certain things, but I don't have that like graphic design aspect to it, and I need that extra help to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And even another thing I want to add is playtesters is another very important one, right? Because although those are not people that directly like contributed anything, I mean, that is like that is like almost like the most important part of the process, where I mean, there were changes that I made that were pretty massive based on just playtester feedback. I mean, that's, you know, that's really like the foundation of this, is something fun, like how does someone engage with it who's never played it before. So, you know, I probably had maybe I want to say maybe like 4 or 5 people that I probably watched play it in person at various stages of development, whether it was like family, friends.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, that was also immeasurably helpful for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I had that thought while I was streaming the game. I mean, I'm not good at games, but I still love them to death. And I just can't help but like crack up to the thought of like, here you are watching me absolutely butchering certain challenges. And I'm curious if that process was similar with the playtesters.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I mean, you have to strike a balance of like there has to be some player friction, right? Like if everyone does everything perfectly and there's just like, there's no challenge, there's no like getting stumped on anything, you know, that's also not very satisfying. You also don't want everything to be impossible, so you have to like, it's really difficult to get that like that perfect balance of like what is the right amount of friction and what is the right amount of just like letting things flow. Like how much are you guiding the player? How much are you revealing to them? How much are you obscuring? So I think in the end, people have generally reacted or engaged with it about the way that I had hoped. There is a larger thing that I kind of wish that I might even go back and change it still, is these transformation pads right here.
Yeah.
So what I had done is, I mean, they started, the idea was basically like, I mean, the original games, they use like the various pads all the time for all sorts of things. So it had started out that these things did not eject like a Mumbo energy power up or whatever. It used to just be that you would go onto the pad and then you would transform while standing on the pad. That ended up changing for a variety of reasons. Basically, I wanted people to be able to transform anywhere as long as they had the energy. So what had happened is like the pad basically stayed there as a byproduct of that. But then because people have that context from the previous games of like, oh, to use anything that's a pad, you need to stand on it. You have all these people who were not basically engaging with the game, you know, at the fullest, because they were always transforming by standing on these, which really like stunts the gameplay and makes it a lot more restrictive. And it's entirely self-imposed, but it's like a little thing like that I would never think of, because to me, I'm like, oh, that's not the design of the game, but because of like just a little visual cue, you know, because people don't, like someone didn't like read the tutorial fully, they end up playing the whole thing like that. So I think, you know, there are things like that, but yeah, for the most part, I think the playtesting really helped to get it to where I wanted it to be.
That's good. That's a underdog of a role for this. Do you find that kind of thing is like just because of the way that Banjo players like by default would play a Banjo game?
I mean, probably, because I mean, there's really only, I mean, there are technically 5 games, right? But the first one is by far the most popular. The second one, fairly popular, not as much so. But I mean, compared to something like Mario, like at this point, like everyone who's a fan of Mario has been conditioned to like expect innovation and variety and something new, right? So there isn't really like, I mean, there are certain things that are kind of like shared in the series. Like there's pretty much always like, if there's a question mark block, you know that like jumping under that makes something happen, or if there's a mushroom, that's probably beneficial for you, right? Banjo doesn't really have the same benefit, right? I even saw some people gave the feedback of like being disappointed that there aren't like all of the various pads and like boots and stuff that are in the first game. And that always stood out as interesting to me because I don't want to just like write off feedback like that immediately, right? But
yeah, that's valid.
I just found it interesting because, I mean, in this game, essentially, like, that stuff hasn't necessarily, like, gone away. It's just been recontextualized as something different, right? So, like, in the original, how you might have used, I can't remember the name of the boots, but, like, they're, like, the green-looking rubber boots. In that game, you would use those to, like, traverse through, like, swamp water and thorns and stuff like that. And, I mean, in this game, you're doing basically the same thing, but, like, this time it's, become the rock, and then you can go onto the thorns, or, you know, things like that. Or even like the shock jump pads, instead of those, you have the clams that like basically bounce you upward. So
yeah, the feel was still there regardless of if the ability was there.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely, I think it's a franchise where, because there's really only like the one game to go off of, I mean, again, technically more, but for the most part, the first game is the one that everybody thinks to, and I think people get very precious about that. If you change anything at all, it's kind of like weird to people, even though I think like in the case of this game, it was for the best. Again, like if I had included like those mechanics I had mentioned, like I could have put them there, but then it's like, well, why put them there? Because there's already, again, something else that serves that purpose. So
yeah, it's almost feeling like a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm with you on just like, why add them in if they don't serve a purpose other than because we expect it to be? I don't really have much of a leg to stand on because I've only recently experienced Banjo ever as of a year ago. I'm trying to understand the the OG expectations of just like, oh, but it's gotta be there. I'm like, I don't know. Every aspect of it felt right to me, and I didn't even realize that like those abilities were missing because I was just perfectly happy with the world that I was in.
For sure.
I don't know. I'm kind of curious. So obviously there's the development process and the play test phases, but then games released and you're watching people play it online. What has that process been like for you? Just kind of the way that all you can do is sit back and watch, and if it's if it's a live stream, you can only comment away.
Oh, I mean, it's super duper gratifying, right? I mean,
yeah.
Honestly, like one of the biggest things that it's shown me is just that the game works, which is awesome. I mean, it sounds silly. Like, I think from the outside, like if someone was looking at this, they might be like, well, how could you not have confidence in it? But I mean, the reality is like, and I don't know, maybe it's because I'm like a perfectionist with things. Like I obsess over, like I'm very critical of myself, which
of course
I think is why I'm able to produce this stuff in the first place. But when you're working on it for so long, mostly in isolation, like it gets really difficult to be like, oh, is this even working? Like, are people going to connect with this in the way that I'm hoping they will? Not that I thought it was awful, but like you just don't really know until it's out there. So just to see people completely eating it up and, you know, streaming it, making videos about it, gushing over it, I mean, it's just like the greatest feeling in the world, honestly. Like I love trying to tune into as much of that stuff as possible. It is interesting. It also does, like, as successful as it's been, it does show you that, like, a good thing to remember as a designer is everything feels like 1 million times easier to you than it does to other people. Like, there have been, like, at every part of development, it feels like I have to, like, essentially, like, dumb something down to me, feeling comically easy, basically. But it's just because I've played the game like a gazillion times. I know how everything works. I know all the little tricks. Like I'm just like very reactive about it. And I mean, sometimes even still you don't tune things quite right. I think something that I wish, and I even noticed this in your stream as well, like something I wish I tutorialized a bit better, was the whole transformation system in general. I think that like a lot of the nuances of it are in the tutorial where it's just like some text, right? And to me, I was like, oh, that's fine, because everything is explained very clearly, you know, very thoughtfully here. It's right there for you. There's no way you could mess that up. And then you watch people play and you realize like a lot of people just don't they don't read tutorials. Like they just don't. And
Yeah.
it's not that that's their fault. It's not like a flaw of the player or whatever, because I do that. Like people gloss over things, but you don't.
Yeah.
You tend to not factor in things like that, where like people just gloss over things because that's what people do, and then that can like drastically negatively affect the experience, and you often forget to safeguard for things like that. So I did catch a few things like that, and it always kind of drives you crazy. Like you're shaking your fists at the screen, and you're like, please look at the thing, do the thing. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, it's been great. It's been super gratifying. You know, I'm just happy it's out there and that people are enjoying it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I definitely am a part of that problem. I mean, I went through the tutorial. I felt I don't have any like notes. It's just for me, I'm like, I just flat out forgot. I'm happily absorbing the whole game and went, oh yeah, what do I do? And forgot. I think there is my community likes to call it streamer's curse, where I'm also like engaging with a wall of text that's always changing and a game, and I'm bouncing back and forth. Not to make up excuses, but I would say in every stream that I do, I have a brain fart moment like that, and I'm like, well, I made an effort for the tutorial, but I still forgot something. Whoops.
No, I mean, that's fair. I mean, I notice myself, I can't hold conversations and play games at the same time. Like I'm just incapable of doing it. Like if someone's talking to me,
hard.
I gotta hit pause or I gotta stop moving. Like, so yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, it's different. It's different versus just you in a bubble play the game.
Yeah.
All of the conversations are happening in your head.
Yeah.
But it's good to hear that. Otherwise, the experience from the sideline has been positive. People are rightfully so loving and enjoying the game. I gotta ask, just kind of going back to the very beginning, what was that first like conversation like, just getting this project started? How did this idea come to mind?
So yeah, it wasn't that it started with a conversation exactly, because it was pretty much just like me toiling away in my living room initially. The thing that started it was basically, I don't even remember what prompted this, but at one point I had made a Twitter post, and the context is basically I had made a game previously on Dreams that was also a 3D platformer, but an original one. And what I had done is in Dreams at one point was basically goofing around, and I made like a Banjo character puppet. And just for kicks, I was like, oh, I'm gonna throw this puppet that I made in one of the levels that I had made for this other game, and I just want to like move around the environment with him, because I thought that would be cool to see, like, you know, what is it like to control Banjo in this level. And I just thought that was kind of neat. You know, I was just kind of goofing around. I took a video of it, I posted it on Twitter, and then that like blew up, which amazed me, because I mean, like, to me, it was just like a fun little thing. Like, I thought it looked sort of bad, but I was like, it's fun. Because again, you know, there was like not really any thought put into it. There wasn't really proper like mechanics or art direction. But people thought it was like the coolest thing ever, and it got like this huge reaction. I think even like Grant Kirkhope had responded to it.
Oh, hello.
Yeah,
okay.
which blew my mind. So it really signaled to me people are super hungry for this kind of thing. And I got to thinking about it. I was like, you know, there isn't really, to my knowledge at least, I might be wrong, there isn't like an HD kind of like separate engine piece of like modern Banjo gameplay out there. I mean, if you exclude like nuts and bolts, ukulele, stuff like that. Like, to my knowledge, no fan has done that. You have like 3D mock-ups and stuff like that. Like, you have concepts on YouTube and that sort of thing.
Right.
But to my understanding, there's not like a modern Banjo platforming experience made by fans or not. So I was like, hey, I can do that. I can use this tool to do that. So yeah, I that was just super exciting to me, and there were a lot of ideas I had. So yeah, I just got to working with the expectation that it would be a modestly sized project. You know, I didn't want to spend forever on it. I think my goal was around like a year or less. I ended up exceeding that a little bit. But yeah, and then sometime into development, I was like sharing some of the progress on the Dreams Discord. There's like a Discord with a few creators on there. And again, Piece of Craft, who I mentioned before, is a big Banjo fan, so he saw that and was like, hey, I'd love to help. So there were a few things that I was just dreading doing that I really didn't want to do, and I was like, hey, you're good at this stuff. If you want to help with this, I'd love that. and he was totally game.
That's
he was
huge.
awesome. He did great work. And then same thing with the composer we had. So yeah, I mean that was basically how that went. It was just a couple of people who were, passionate about the thing and just got together and made something cool.
Absolutely. And everyone's strong points coming together. I mean, I couldn't imagine trying to do the score myself. Well, I mean, I have a background in music, but that's such a thing where it's like, I wouldn't want it to be done like incorrectly in any sense. You know what I mean? I would want justice for the score, and it absolutely nailed the head. To me, it did.
Yeah, the main theme especially, which was not even originally intended as the main theme. I think Duckonomics, he had done basically what you hear is the title screen music, but that was intended for the main level. And I wanted something that was like just kind of more faithful to the original level in general, something that just felt like an HD rendition of that, a modern rendition of that. But I really, really love that piece of music that he did. So that ended up being kind of like the de facto main theme title screen music. And then the lower key version of that's kind of like more sparse and ambient and percussion focus is the one that plays in the interiors, like the caves and such. So yeah, it was awesome.
Got it. Okay. Well, will any of the score kind of like be available to listen to online if it isn't already?
That would be a question for the composer. It's not for me to say or do. I mean, he did well. It is. Yeah, I guess you'd be able to, because I mean, I was at first wondering, well, it's someone else's IP, but I guess there are covers and that sort of thing that are released on YouTube all the time. So as long as money isn't being made off of it, I would imagine it would be fine. But again, not my call.
Fair enough. I never heard of Dreams before this. I'm very curious to hear just what is it like working in it. You mentioned that you worked on a game prior to this in Dreams. I'm curious to hear your perspective as a creator and working in Dreams.
Yeah, so I mean, pun intended, it is a dream come true for a creator. I mean, it's honestly incredible. Like, essentially, I guess the best way to put it is like, in terms of game development tools, you usually have like your very simple game creators, whether that's like an online like Flash game website thing, or like even like Mario Maker or something like that. Just like tools where they're very easy to use, but it comes at the cost of like you can't make anything like particularly interesting with them. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have like game engines, which have often like an insane amount of bloat, an insane amount of like technical knowledge that you need to make things work. You're using like all these different programs, right? Like, it's not an all-in-one thing. Like, the game engine is the engine, but then you need like a software to model, and then like your thing for your music, etc. Dreams basically lies somewhere in the middle, where everything is included in here. So like, basically, I can model within Dreams, I can do the logic within Dreams, I can animate within Dreams, you can do the music within Dreams.
Really?
And yeah, and I mean, it's all like very intuitive as well, which is awesome. Like, it strikes this amazing balance of like, the tools are like complex enough that you can just do a lot with them. They're simplified enough where like almost anyone can do it, and it limits, I guess, like the complexity or scope a little bit. But I mean, for making like most things, it's just like the perfect balance between complexity and simplicity. And I think the other thing that's super helpful too is, again, just the community assets, right? Like, just if I'm in here in a scene, like if I want, like just at a tap of a button, like I can hit this search bar and I can just go in here and just like look up anything anyone has made. You have filters. So like the whole thing is just like, it's just there at your fingertips. Is awesome.
Wow. And so if a community member made an asset, that's available to anyone in Dreams?
I believe they have to set it to be so. But there is, and like all of the stuff for this is private because I'm protective, right?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's tons of people who have made stuff for the community that can just be used and whatever. So. And I would love to like demo some of that for you as well at some point. I don't know like when you'd want to look, but I mean, yeah, it's awesome to use.
That's super. Okay. That makes sense because I was wondering like how do you get whatever like the banjo model in here? I thought it would have been like whatever third party outside of Dreams that you would bring assets into, but it was all done within Dreams?
Correct. Yep.
Wow, that's cool. Okay. That's amazing.
It's very awesome. It's great to use, honestly. Like this is the kind of project, like, I mean, I don't want to say for sure because there's probably someone out there who's like 5 times smarter and more talented than me who could do it. But like a project like this, I'm very skeptical that you could do with like 1 to 3 people in like an actual game engine at both the same level of quality and polish and like within the same time frame. It's probably, again, I don't want to say an impossibility, but it's made far easier using this.
How does it work with more than one people? Does it function like a project that's shared with multiple like PS5s?
Yeah, it's pretty intuitive. So like,
wow,
basically you can't live edit together. So like I can't invite someone as a collaborator and then they're like physically in the scene with me, like modifying things with me. Like you can only have like one person in a scene at a time, saving something at a time. But otherwise, you can just add people as a collaborator and they can jump in, they can make changes, you can make changes. It'll say like who saved what. You can leave notes for each other, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's awesome.
That's that's really cool. I have very, very little experience with anything game development related, and I gotta say, just hearing about all this and seeing this has me kind of wanting to like just poke around, like kind of more like Mario Maker, where like it's not gonna be good, but I just enjoy the process.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend it, honestly. Like, it's very, very sad to me that it's lost its live support. So I mean, it's still up. The servers are still there. You can still make things and upload things like I did, but Media Molecule does not support the game anymore in terms of like updates and that sort of thing. So it's kind of at a dead end right now, which is really unfortunate. Makes you wonder what could have been, but it's still super fun to use. I mean, it's as just like a hobby tool or just to mess around or just to see what other people have made. I mean, it's awesome.
So I guess with that in mind, if there's ever a day where those servers are shut down, does that just mean there's no more access to Mumbomania or any of the games on there?
I mean, in theory, yes. And it makes me sad. But, you know, also my mentality is nothing is permanent anyway. You know, I made a thing that I loved and it was real and people played it.
Absolutely.
People loved it. There are videos of it. So like in that way, it's valuable. And I mean, it'll always be alive to me. You know, there is a degree to where, like, I would say investing like too much time into it might be foolish. I mean, that's up to anyone's individual judgment, right? Like, if something's still worth it to you, then like great. But I mean, at least for me, you know, I wouldn't want to say, I don't know, be working on something for like 3 years in Dreams and then like knowing that the month after that, like it's going to be shut down. It would kind of be like, you know, is this the best use of my time? But as far as I understand, that day is still pretty far. And I mean, this was a relatively small thing. So, you know, I was comfortable with doing it.
You still enjoyed making the game. The people who played still very much enjoyed playing the game. So it's that mentality of time that was enjoyed is not time wasted, that kind of thing. Yeah,
that can't be understated as well. Just the amount of experience that I gained from this. I mean, there were so many lessons I learned. I mean, I think it's just looking at this compared to the last thing I made, I mean, it was very evident to me like how much I grew as a designer. And not that I'm going to make another big game like this in Dreams, but if I were to, like, I'm sure you would see the same effect where it would be like, I would look back at this and be like, oh, look at all these things that I could have done differently, or, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, that was awesome.
So is that kind of with Dreams support have gone away? Is that one of the reasons why you wouldn't go forward with working in Dreams again?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. That's a big reason for sure, but I think I would like to move away from it eventually, just because it's ultimately not something you can use as like a commercial tool to create multi-platform games that kind of like reach a wide, it's not the same thing.
Right.
I think I heard, I don't know how true this is. I'm fairly sure it is, but I know at one point there was a plan to basically allow Dreams creators to basically, there was going to be a system under which they could actually like have their stuff on the PlayStation Store, and it could be played as like an independent thing.
That'd be huge.
Yeah, which like if something like that existed, maybe I would be like, okay, this tool is like the most fun that I have with anything. I can make money doing it. I can have stuff on the PlayStation Store. But even then, it's like, I don't know, you're still limited by like some of the scope constraints and things like that of Dreams. So it's like, I think it wouldn't be like, oh, this is like my long-term career. I might have more pause over like, okay, maybe it's worth doing more in here if there are all of these incentives to do so, and it'll like reach, a larger amount of people and that kind of thing. But ultimately, like I'd move on to doing more, I don't want to use the word like real professional work, but for lack of a better word, work and skills that can allow me to like make games that are made with an actual engine that can be distributed on various platforms, that sort of thing. Because I mean, that's the dream, that's the goal ultimately. So,
of course, that's kind of it's that next step.
Yeah, exactly.
I respect it, and I think that's kind of the beauty of anyone working on a game in Dreams, where it allows you to, at any level, whether it being your first time or your 10th time or 100th time, whatever, it allows you to better understand the process and shoot for even bigger goals.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, hey, I am itching to see more of your perspective in the game. Would love to know things about like just kind of like the art style direction. I mean, it looks, I don't know how to describe it. I don't have the vocabulary for it, but it looks different, but it still very much looks and sounds and feels like Banjo.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through just kind of the art direction?
For sure, yeah. I mean, I don't want to let you down too much, but I'm a little bit the same way where like technically, I mean, like I'm not an art director and I'm not like classically trained and that sort of thing, right? And the main priority for me was make the game fun. So,
absolutely,
there are a lot of things where there's not necessarily like a deeper aesthetic choice beyond like, oh, I thought that looked good, right? I accidentally deleted the water plane. Okay, it's back. But yeah, I can talk about some of this stuff. So I mean, like Banjo over here, and again, I don't want to take credit. This was done by a piece of craft. I did some modifications afterward. He did kind of like the base thing that I ended up touching up. But I mean, this was kind of like the starting point where I feel like, I mean, honestly, this kind of like informed a lot of the other art direction. Like I just experimented with like a lot of like levels of detail on this. Like, how big do you want the tufts of fur to be? Like, do his pants have texture? They did end up having texture. It just kind of
the
like
belt too.
Yeah, just kind of like messing around with like getting the proportions right and everything. The inspiration for this was basically like, I mean, pretty much like Smash Ultimate was the blueprint. Because I mean, the model in that game looks fantastic. This one's a little bit more like stout, and I guess like a little bit more like cute looking, like a little bit more like chunky, a little bit more, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I think this really kind of like informed the look of everything else. So like a lot of what I was doing was basically just like updating the original N64 models to, how would you expect that they would look now? And honestly, like it doesn't go much deeper than that for like a lot of the characters. Like, I mean, like for Mumbo, that was basically the process. I think I had looked towards some of like the promo art. I think there was even like a third party like toy or sculpture that I thought looked really great for Mumbo. Just like a perfect example of what he would look like in HD. So I was using that as a pretty strong reference. And then same thing like with the Jinjos over here. Like I can show them. I mean, they're very faithful. They're basically like if you look at the original game models, they're like a little bit cursed looking, like because of the low polygon count. Like they sort of have like a uni-eye. It's like one eye shape, but it's got two pupils on it, that kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, besides the characters, I mean, I guess the best way I can explain or describe like the set dressing would be, I didn't want like a huge emphasis on like super detailed textures, I guess, and more so on like interesting, consistent shape language. So like, if you look at like the N64, you know, back then, like everything being so low poly, like oftentimes your environments might just be like, oh, this thing is a cube or a rectangle or whatever. And so like a lot of the detail comes from just the texturing, right? That's where you kind of like bring it to life. That's where you give it personality, because you often don't have enough in the way of like polygon count to flesh it out as far as shape goes. So like a lot of what I was doing here is like the rocks don't have like highly detailed textures, but it was more so about like creating this kind of like interesting chunky look of like, I don't know, just these like nice defined rocks, sharp angles.
Yeah.
Just focusing more on like the shading and like highlighting of things like the edges and stuff. And I guess it's kind of reminiscent of like what you would expect from Banjo here. Like I was trying to kind of keep with that. And I mean, that extends to most things. Like again, like these leaves, you know, they don't have like a super strong texture, but it's a lot about these kind of like chunky cutouts and like the highlights and stuff like that. So like strong shading, strong shapes, that sort of thing. Even if you look at like the sand, you know, you have these like very clear, like strong, cartoony, stylized, like wavy lines in the water.
Yeah.
You know, you have these, I guess they would be like ripples or something. It's something you see in like toon water a lot in like games or anime where you have these kind of like ripples that are like making these kind of like these shapes. So I think, I mean, a lot of the art direction was just like coming up with like interesting, chunky, stylized shapes like that aren't like too rounded looking. I didn't want it to look like too cute, because I mean, Banjo is like, I don't know, I think a lot of people describe Banjo as like being whimsical. I don't really see it that way. Like there's something like very like grungy and cynical and like I don't know, like it has a very interesting tone where like there are like hints of whimsy, but it almost feels like it's almost like a spoof of whimsy, or like I don't know, like farcical in some way, or like a spoof of like fairy tales and stuff like that. Like it's very like exaggerated. So I didn't want things to feel like too like adorable, too bubbly. So the colors aren't like super saturated. Speaking of the colors, I mean, it was important to try and keep like a pretty cohesive color palette. I mean, even if you just like look at a glance, and I mean, I want to preface this by saying too, like a lot of this is kind of done for me by the art direction of the original game in terms of like color palette and stuff like that, right?
Right, yeah.
But at least in terms of like recreating it, you know, it was important to be like, you know, the strong basically shades of brown and these like sandy colors, and then the greens that you see all throughout the level. So it's like it's kind of like a very strong palette of like, I don't know, 5 or 6 colors that are pretty repeated. You have like some pink accents where obviously like the shell is the big example, but then you have like little things like the shells in the ground, or like the starfish add like some pop here and there.
Yeah, these nice little details that work so well. They don't need to be hyper realistic, but it adds to the playful world.
Yeah, exactly. I also tried to just like differentiate some of the areas a little bit more so they don't feel quite as samey. So like this area over here, this just has more foliage for no other reason than, you know, it makes it feel more distinct. That's something that like as a level designer, I try and pay attention to specifically, is like basically making every area feel like it kind of has its own identity, its own atmosphere, its own, just it helps you stay oriented in the level, right? Because
big time. Yeah,
because otherwise this could easily just become like big blob of sand, and then that's hard to differentiate it from like this blob of sand over here, right?
Yep.
So if you just do little things like that, and there's even little touches that aren't super obvious, but like I pointed out these shells before, like the area where Nipper is, or his tomb, rest in peace, has, you know, all these little shell pieces to just kind of like add to that feeling, add to that identity.
Oh yeah.
So there isn't like a huge amount of that. It's mostly like small stuff like that. But I definitely think it helps. Or even just like the fortress is fairly different. Like in the N64 original, it's fairly like you're doing a lot of imagining what it might look like. Like it isn't necessarily obvious what the structure is. So this was really fun to basically add a lot of like flourishes to that with like these windows and stuff, these little like flags, that sort of thing. Like none of that stuff is present in the original. Some of these structures were added. So like this whole piece right here is not there in the original. I believe this is normally just like, this is all basically just open right here. Like this whole upper part doesn't exist, this whole doorway.
I see.
So, and part of that is like for a level design reason. Like I wanted that there for a specific level design purpose, but the other part is just also adding to that feeling of like, hey, this place is different now. Like it's the same place, but it's changed.
Has passed.
Yeah,
right.
So yeah, I mean that was a lot of fun to basically stay faithful to what the original game had established. And just kind of like trying to update that for a modern age, but then like adding details and everything else, especially fun for like the underwater area.
I love that you added this underwater area. I thought it was such a clever way to expand this world that we already know and love without it feeling like, oh, they just tacked it on. It's like, no, this actually could have always been there, but we didn't spend the time underwater.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, well, I guess I had a whole tangent I was going to go on. I didn't know if you wanted to keep talking about the art direction or not.
Hey, if you got more, I'm all ears.
For sure. Yeah, the reason for that was basically, it wasn't going to start out that way originally. It was going to just be basically like a lot more open, more of just like a big sand plane like in the original. And at that point, I did have the rock transformation, and I did have the idea where you could use the rock to go into the water safely. And there was always the idea that you would kind of become like a moon rock, where you would like have basically like low gravity jumping underwater. And it was just like a really missed opportunity. It was really boring to just have that be, a giant flat plane of sand. Like in the original, it's kind of okay because you're never really going down there. Like there's not any reason to really, like you swim slowly and then Snacker's gonna attack you and there's nothing in the water anyway. So it's fine, right?
Right.
But yeah, I hit a point where I was like, oh, I can't just have all this be nothing. So now I got to make a whole, other part of the level, basically.
Okay. So it just kind of expanded naturally.
Yeah. And, a lot of that process is, and I guess this is kind of getting into like level design and stuff, but it's just slowly like basically plotting out ideas and basically like zoning things to be like, having a rough idea of like, oh, I want this to be the shipwreck area, and then I want like an obstacle course going through the water, so I'm going to make that where you can approach it from either side, and then there's going to be this like midpoint right here, and then I know like this is going to be like one continuous mass of sand, so then just trying to think of like interesting ways to populate that space down here, so like you just have like different navigational ideas that you're playing with, like one being like, hop from pillar to pillar, the other one being the jiggy on this pillar, and the catch here is that like it's very easy to overshoot it. So it involves you having to like control in like a slightly different way than you normally would. So yeah, I mean it's it was great fun, honestly. Like that was one of the coolest parts, I think, of just designing this level, because that was like the big thing that was like new, right? So it was really an opportunity to I guess just like flex my level design skills. Another thing that was fun about that is seeing how the visible parts of the area that like were in the original, how those could be recontextualized down below the water. So like you have this thing where you have the jiggy in the tower, and that was just a fun consequence of this tower already existing here in the original game. So in a lot of ways, you're just building off of like what's there and then imagining the rest, where I was like, oh, it would be really cool if this goes way down and then you can go in there, and then, figuring out how that's going to branch off of the obstacle course. So yeah, it's a ton of fun.
It's such a good balance of what was already here versus what you're able to contribute and add. That's your own idea.
For sure.
I love it so much. Of all the worlds, what had you decided on Treasure Trove Cove?
Ooh, that's a good question. So basically, there were a few reasons. The biggest reason, and I think this was the very first, it was the main determining factor, basically, was the game I had made previously was a nautical themed game where there were like every level was basically like sea themed or like sailor themed. It was called Trips Voyage is the game, which is also on Dreams.
Okay.
And so there were a lot of assets that I had made for that where I was like, okay, I want to do this new project and like I'm really passionate about it, but I don't want to spend forever doing it. So this will be my way of speeding it up. Is there's some stuff that I've already made that'll fit this level theme that I can just reuse. So technically, like, I guess he's Snacker, even though he kind of doesn't look like Snacker, but Bone Snacker in this is actually one of the bosses from the previous game that I had made.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, with just like a modified model, so it's not the exact same. Like I did some tweaks to basically like update the art direction, like make him feel like he fit in this world. That was one big reason, was just like the practicality of that. I guess the other obvious one is just like, you know, this is a lot of people's favorite level in the first game. So it's one that's very memorable for people. A lot of people have probably played it because it's one of the first in the game. So,
right, yeah,
you know, a huge amount of people have experienced it. As far as like, you know, the people who haven't beaten the game, they've most definitely seen this level. And then also, I mean, one of my design goals going in is, because my last game was very derivative of other games. Like if anyone has played Trips Voyage or plays it in the future, it's basically Mario, right? And that was, I mean, it was fine as like, that was the first big thing that I made. So in a lot of ways, like I was learning. But for this project, I was like, okay, I want to spread my wings. I want to basically offer like what would feel like is a AAA experience that is something that you haven't played before. So like there's obviously ideas from other games that are in there, but as a cohesive whole, it's like a gameplay style, a type of gameplay that you probably can't get from another game exactly. Using another level from the game, from the original game, as opposed to just like making it a wholly original level, just like allowed me to focus a lot more on the mechanical stuff, the systemic stuff of like, you know, I was like, okay, I'm just going to start with this as a base. A lot of the level design is done for me. I'm just going to build off of it. But just having that there allowed me to be able to focus way more on like the transformation stuff, how I wanted to update the Banjo-Kazooie 1 gameplay, and I think that really, really made it shine. So yeah, those are probably the biggest 3 reasons I can think of.
That's great. I imagine it's got kind of a like, in a sense of making like a remake of a game where the map's already laid out, the bones are already there. Now to kind of add to that, make sure it looks the way I want it to, and then here's the new stuff that I would want to introduce.
Yeah, and I will say as well, like it is interesting to think about. Like I did see a lot of people online who, in comment sections, where when people were like playing the game and kind of like praising it and being like, oh, the level design is so great and this and this and that. I saw a fair amount of people who were like, you know, we can't really give credit to him though. Like it's another person's level, like, and
come on.
and I don't want to get too butthurt about it, right? But I think, you know, it's sometimes it's I guess kind of disheartening to see stuff like that, because although there is a massive amount of credit that goes to the original creators, obviously, like,
right,
the whole foundation is theirs, but something you don't realize, like if you're not a designer, is like something that was really, really, really difficult was basically like recontextualizing a level around a different set of mechanics. Because oftentimes, like, or I would say all the time actually, with game design, you pretty much always want to start with the mechanics, and then that will inform the level design. And so something that was like really unexpectedly difficult for me was, because this game kind of like, I mean, yeah, the basic moves are there, but you have this like whole different transformation system and kind of like way of navigating, way of engaging with the game world. So it was actually really, really tough for me to be like, okay, well, how do I like adjust or re-theme this stuff so it now like makes sense and complements this new set of mechanics? Because it's a very backwards way of doing things. I mean, even like this area in the original is like the shock jump zone or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like your introduction to that. Or, well, actually, I think you have an introduction earlier, but even still, it's kind of like a way of letting you experiment with that. And So here, you know, again, because I didn't have that in the game, I was like, okay, I need to think of like a different purpose for these. And that ended up being like the thorny platforms where the challenge is kind of like the brain teaser where it's like, well, how do I step on these without it hurting me? And then, of course, you know, like all the new additions to the level and like the changes to the level. So although like even like the ship is like oriented completely differently and kind of has a different way of traversing it. And again, like the whole underwater section as well. So although, you know, a lot is borrowed, there's also like, I mean, everything is like very recontextualized and there's almost nothing in the level that's just like the exact same. So I'm really, really proud of that work. And it was much tougher than I thought it would be, honestly.
Oh, okay. I can imagine. I mean, it's like, yes, the bare bones are there, the map's there, but it's also trying to continue working off of that versus having 100% freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, those are silly comments. I hope it's a very small, loud minority saying those things. It's so, I feel like that would be the same mentality of like, oh, well, you can't praise this composer because there's only so many notes that exist on a keyboard and they're just rearranging from this other song. It's just, I don't know. It's just silly nonsense.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not, you know, it's not something that I really get upset about. It's more so I just like using instances like that as like an opportunity to kind of like show people how the process works. Because I think a lot of the time like people are just, because I mean like ultimately I don't care that much what someone on the internet thinks, right? Like it's, you know, you just make what you make and you know, and then you're done with it. But I mean,
right.
I think a lot of stuff like that is said because people who like don't make video games, they just like don't necessarily like see or understand the nuances. And I, who am a huge nerd about this stuff, I love to ramble about it and be like, well, actually, there's this and this and this and this and this. And
here's where you're wrong.
Yeah, and it's just fun to shed the light on the process. I mean, I love the process and the art of it, so I love talking about it.
Well, power to you for twisting this in such a positive way too. It's easy to fall down a a grumpy rabbit hole, but to take the opportunity to kind of share the expertise, the behind the scenes that are not well known.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
Great. I would love to hear about the decision on these transformations, and not just one, but 5 transformations. I love rock, cannon. I think Plonk's my favorite. Love skeleton, hogswash. I'm curious to hear how you made up the decision for each one and for the players to always have access to Mumbo versus needing to go find Mumbo to go back and forth.
Yeah, so this was one of the most difficult parts of the game to develop. Probably the most, because I mean, when you really break it down, like, I mean, with the 5 transformations, like making a character controller is already like one of, at least for a platformer, important distinction. Making a character controller is like one of the most complex parts of that process that you're like always going to be going back to. And then, I mean, just like doing that times 5 or whatever is, and it's like there are ways where it gets logistically complicated in ways that you don't even anticipate, where I hit a point during development where there's basically like a piece of logic where when you hit a doorway, like Banjo walks forward and then it fades out or whatever. Like you don't realize that when you have 5 other characters, you need to do the same little pieces of logic like that, but for them. And it's not going to directly translate because they kind of like work in different ways. So I have like a different movement set up for like the rock, right? So I needed to do a thing where the rock gets control locked and then like rolls into the doorway when he hits a doorway. And there are things like that just like drive you insane when you're making a game. Just things that you never thought of where you're like, oh, I have to do that, and it takes like 3 days or something. But yeah, I mean, back to your question, the 5 transformations, the first 2 were the rock and the cannon. Those are the first 2 ideas I had for transformations. They were there from basically the very beginning because I thought those would be super cool. Basically, like before I get into kind of like why they do what they do, the reason for wanting to take the game in this direction was I actually think that the way Mumbo is handled in the first game is kind of like actually one of the weakest design points of that game, I think. And not in like a, you know, I don't want to, I'm not being hateful about it or anything, but just in terms of like my personal preferences as a player, like I don't love that in that game that like if you want to transform into something, you need to like walk all the way to the hut, transform, and then you walk out of the hut, and then like oftentimes when using the transformations, there's like a very bespoke specific thing that you use them for, instead of kind of like being like feeling more like a tool in your tool set. Like it's more like, oh, this is like basically the key to this one challenge, so I'm gonna transform, I'm gonna walk over, and then it'll probably just be like, oh, I'm small enough to fit into this space now, and then I can go collect my prize or whatever, and then I walk all the way back to Mumbo, and then I de-transform. And there's nothing wrong with like the individual instances of like how they're used. It's just that like a lot of them feel kind of similar, and that like a lot of them fall into the category of like, you're a small creature now, so now you can like fit into this space. It's like that's kind of done a lot, but also just like not feeling like they have wider uses. So those were two things I wanted to address. And that's why Mumbo follows you everywhere. That was kind of like the genesis of that idea. Is I was like, man, I really wish that like Mumbo could just be there with you.
Agreed.
So he got disembodied, and his Mumbo magic is just, it's kind of like an RPG party system or something where he's just there with you.
His body was holding him back.
Yeah, I know.
The magic.
I know. He's way more powerful this way. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then as far as the transformations, I mean, it was basically like I want to give these, a variety of uses, basically make them feel like actual tools in your tool set, where it's like, you have challenges where you basically have to use them for like a specific purpose, but then on top of that, like in many ways, they're just useful to use. Like Plonk is particularly used for like a couple things, but he's also just like good for combat and that sort of thing.
Big time.
And the other thing too is like the other layer to that is Plonk can do things that like other transformations can do as well. So like Captain Shelley has the weight challenge where he wants you to like weigh down the scale or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can do that with Plonk, but you can also do that with the cannon. So
the cannon,
yeah. So there's kind of this neat layer of like, there's not always like one solution for everything. And then some things, there are bespoke solutions where it's like, no, you have to use this transformation for that. And then in general, like most of them have like just a general utility of like, they're just useful to use for like other gameplay reasons, whether it's like navigation, combat, whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, the rock, that was one of the first ones. I just thought that control scheme would be super fun, just being able to be kind of like something that's small, but then can also survive in water and is also like really fast, is impervious to certain things like thorns. It just felt like there were like so many cool ideas there. And there's also kind of like a neat novelty in something that like looks underwhelming, but then, and is kind of like goofy, is kind of like anticlimactic. It's like, oh, cool, I can become a rock, whoop-de-doo. But then you realize when playing the game that there's actually like an enormous amount of depth that you can get out of that. And I saw that exact reaction from people playing, which is really cool. People being like, oh, well, that's lame. Like, why would I want to do that? And then they were like, oh, this is actually really cool.
I think internally I had that thought process, but it was a very quick 180. I was like, oh, all right, we're a rock. And then I was like, whoa, rock can do a lot. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another one was the cannon was basically very Mario 64 inspired. Have you played that game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I immediately got that feel with cannon.
Yeah. So like the cannons they're in a few levels, but primarily Bob on Battlefield. Yes. I always thought that was so cool. I mean, it's such a fun thing to just like launch yourself in the air and like say a prayer and like hope you land where you want to land. But then also just like as general navigation, they're useful. And I was like, man, it would be kind of fun if you could just do that almost anywhere. So that was the idea with that. And, again, just kind of having that multi-purpose shared design language of like, they can break things open like the chests. They can weigh things down on that one weight challenge. So, there was just a good amount of justification for that being there. Plonk came a bit later. He wasn't there from the very beginning, but he was pretty early. And I mean, like a lot of these transformations are basically just trying to check boxes of like, what are the different like fundamental abilities that I want to give the player. So like an obvious one that comes to mind is like, oh, I want the player to be able to basically like be heavy and burly and to be able to like smash things open. And so that kind of just like organically came about as a result. Same thing with like the skeleton. It kind of functions similarly to the cannon in that it's often used to basically like get more height and also to like reach something far away. But it's restricted in that like you can only fly so high. So whereas the cannon is all about like I can break things open and I can go super vertical, but with less control. The skeleton's whole deal is, okay, I can travel like super far horizontally.
Right.
So it's kind of like there's not really like a perfect like flying mechanic. Basically, it's kind of like the two different elements of flight in terms of like verticality and like horizontal movement are like split between these two transformations. So you have to like use them for the right use. And the pirate, I mean, was just, I'm sure most people can probably relate to this. Like, I hate the thing in a lot of collectathons where you get close to 100% and then you just end up like having to scour the level for like everything that's in it if you want 100%. Yeah. And to me, okay, and like some people, maybe that's fun. To me, that's not fun, right? Like, I don't want to do that. So I mean that kind of just came about as like, okay, well, I want to allow the player to do this, and I was like, oh, I have this transformation system, like I can just make that, I can give you the ability to do that through that system somehow.
Give us the option.
Yeah, and that took a bit of iteration. I'm like a little bit unhappy with how the telescope. Yeah, because I mean, with the telescope, it's like it feels like it comes a little bit out of nowhere because with all the other transformations, it feels like the abilities that you get from them are extensions of what the enemies actually do. Whereas the pirate doesn't use the telescope in any way, doesn't even have a telescope on them. So everyone, when they're playing, they're like, oh, I wonder what I'm going to get to do with the pirate. And then you get it, and it's like sort of random, like it kind of comes out of nowhere. The reason for that is because like it was a little bit forced, because I was like, oh, well, I want to do this thing. The best thing I can think of is use this enemy, and they have a telescope now. Yeah. And they can like see through walls with that. And I really wanted to do like an idol or something where when the enemy spawns, like they basically like have a telescope and they're like scouting around, and that's how they would spot you, and then they would like aggro, and then they would chase after you. So that was on my checklist. I just never quite got around to doing it, but I think something like that really would have made that feel more like, oh, aha, of course, that's what that was. Is like they're kind of naturally scouting out as their idol instead of just walking in a circle.
I see.
But I do want to point out as well, I'm gonna hop into play mode right here.
Yeah.
And you know,
I could see how that's challenging, of just like, this is a great mechanic for the player, but how does it naturally fit into the game or the world and the characters?
Exactly.
That's tough.
I want to this is all my insane logic, my spaghetti logic. I'm going to turn on my debug controls real quick.
It's a lot of spaghetti.
For sure. So there are even like interesting ways in which these can be combined, where like with Mumbo stuff, like if I transform, well, I'm stuck, hold on. So if I transform into like the cannon, like I can do cool things like this where I can then replenish my energy.
Yes.
And then I can aim up, and then I can shoot, and then I can become skeleton. And
I should have been thinking about this. Yeah.
And there's just all sorts of stuff like that where, I mean, if you're thinking creatively of like, how can I combine these things? You can do really awesome stuff like that. So.
I should have done that for that jiggy right there. I mean, I think you were there for the end where like, this was the last jiggy, trying to make it work with the cannon, wasn't getting the aim quite right, and then, hey, let me just try skeleton, but somewhere else, and that's how I got it. But yeah, I should have been thinking a little more creatively through the combination.
Yeah, it's unfortunate too, because that whole idea was what made me really excited about this project, and to me felt really novel, and I think still is novel, because I haven't really seen like another 3D platformer do exactly this. But I was really bummed I was bummed and happy when Bonanza was announced, because Bonanza, or actually more so when I played it, because Bonanza basically does this exact thing, but did it first when I was in the process of making this game, when I was working on this idea where I was like, oh, this is so cool, and no one's done it before. There's the thing in that game where you can, I guess this is like a minor spoiler, but when you get the snake transformation and you can like jump up high in the air, you can then become the ostrich and basically do the same thing I'm doing here. Right. And I was like, man, That's okay.
Yeah.
It's different enough in implementation, and like there's enough that makes this unique that like this is still worth playing, I think.
100%.
It's just as a designer, like I'm always trying to be like, what can I give to people that they haven't experienced before?
Of course, yeah.
So it's always like a little bit disheartening when stuff like that happens, but you can't be too mad. That game's incredible. I got a great game out of it.
It is, and I have to say that goes to show that like your idea, while it came to you before Bonanza, it goes to show like it is a good idea because it clearly works. People enjoyed that mechanic. It worked so well in Bonanza. I wish I thought of it for Mumbomania, but clearly it works very well here as well.
Yeah.
I gotta praise you for allowing Mumbo to be a permanent tool with the player because I felt like it made for a very smoother and faster experience for the game. I can only echo what you're saying with just the original Banjo-Kazooie. As much as it is beloved and very fun, I completely agree that there's times where I feel that sluggish of like, go to Mumbo, transform, go to challenge, get challenge complete, go back to Mumbo, de-transform. It can feel sluggish. In its defense, it's an N64 game. Mm-hmm. But I think it made perfect sense to go about that method for a game in the great year. 2025 is when it came out, but in a more modern age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, and I don't want to really say that as like a slight on the designers or anything, because I mean, again, like you said, like the thing about games is like, or any art form, any medium is like, people are figuring it out as they go, like in 98.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm like a little bit younger, like I was not, like a kid when that game came out, right? Like I kind of played it after the fact, but like if I played that in 98, I'm sure it would be like the coolest thing ever. And I would have no qualms with it at all. And the nature of this stuff is just like things change and like new design conventions are set. And then like what you find appealing now, like you might not find that in older games. So it was just like a scenario of like, okay, I want to update this for a modern audience, basically, like for what people expect out of a game today. So yeah, that was basically the reasoning.
Absolutely. Were there more transformations that you wanted to do, or were there things that you wanted to add to the current transformations that you couldn't find a way to fit?
That's a good question. As far as more transformations, I think no. I think my head was always sort of floating around the idea of 5. In terms of like more abilities, I guess maybe I wish the pirate had more to do.
Okay.
But I didn't know what that would be. And I didn't want to make it something like really bespoke or random. I remember like you were playing and your thought was like, oh, he should be able to like open the treasure chests, for example. Which I mean, like there might be a cool idea there, but I wanted to like avoid stuff like that where it feels like unintuitive, where it's like the pirate can open these like just because he can for some reason, right? It's like, why can he?
Too obvious.
Yeah, unless like he has like a key or something, and like that's the explanation. But like,
okay.
I don't know. Like I wanted all of the abilities and the solutions that they're used for to kind of feel like intuitive, like natural extensions of the character. I kind of wanted to do like, I was trying to think of something unique that the pirate does specifically, and I was thinking of like the slash, and I thought like, well, maybe there are like ropes and things like that, because the only other way you would break a rope would be maybe by like burning it. Like you wouldn't brute force it with like Blanc or something. So I did think about like, okay, do I want to maybe have stuff where you have to like chop ropes to like drop something down with the pirate, but that never ended up happening.
I see.
Yeah. And that's the tough thing too about, because you asked about if I had more transformations planned. That is something I think about a lot in terms of like, I don't know how scalable this is as like a full-length game idea, because it's really cool in this like isolated environment where you have like one level and you learn 5 transformations. But I have a feeling that if you did a full-length game where you have like 10 levels, if you're learning 5 in every one, things are going to get messy really quickly. And you're going to run into the problem that Echoes of Wisdom has. Echoes of Wisdom is a Zelda game that came out recently that was a big inspiration for this game, where in that game you basically go up to stuff in the overworld and you basically like scan it or like use some magic on it or whatever, and you can basically spawn that object anywhere, like a replica of it. And I was like, oh, I want to do that, but for transformations where you like go up to stuff in the world and you basically like do some ability on it, and then it's like added to your like tool set or whatever, but instead of spawning it, you transform into it. But that game has this thing where, because you can do that for like literally every enemy and entity in the game, you end up having like 100+ things that you have access to. Yeah. And I think the game is fun. I think largely it's pretty well designed, but it does have this thing where like you get to a point where like a lot of this stuff does the same thing, and you could get rid of like 75% of it and you could still play the game fine. It's just that like you can't necessarily do that because it feels sort of cheap if you say, oh, well, you can copy some of these enemies and some of these objects, but then arbitrarily you can't do it to these ones because the designers don't want to do that. It's like, well, what's the natural explanation for that? Like, as a player, that's frustrating. So yeah, I think like if it was like a full length game, you know, I could probably come up with an idea where I could be like, okay, there's 5 more transformations and they're all going to kind of work together in an interesting way where they complement each other and they each kind of have like a unique use where they feel earned. And then just say like, okay, you get like 1 per level. But as far as like scaling this to like repeating this level of complexity for 10 levels, I think it's just not scalable.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm curious if there were more than 1 level in this game, would you potentially restrict the transformations to only that world? And then a new world gives you a different set of transformations.
Ooh, I did think really hard about that. Yeah. Yeah. No. It's a great point because I mean, think about it. Like, especially with Skeleton and Canon in particular. Big adventure transformations. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if like with other levels, I mean, for this one, it's designed with those in mind, where they're like quote overpowered in that they can let you travel long distances, but. Yeah. Everything is designed with that in mind. So like a lot of the challenges revolve around like aiming the cannon well to reach a certain spot. Like you can't even get to the top of the mountain really unless you use those transformations to get up there. It's like part of the challenge. But if you had another level, and especially if you learn those transformations early in the game, you could very easily run into this issue of, oh no, I've designed all of these great, awesome challenges, but then they're all ruined by these transformations existing and being able to be used at any time. And I mean, that's why like in the original game, like you have like the flight pads, like you can't just fly anywhere, because if you could fly anywhere, you could break a bunch of things. So they say, okay, you can only fly when we want you to fly. This game is all about like the freedom of like you can transform pretty much anywhere, so I wouldn't want to sacrifice that. So yeah, I mean, it's something really tough. Like probably like I would just say I'd like the idea of them carrying over a lot, because that feels really novel. Like it feels really cool to learn a transformation and then you can go use that in a different level. So I think I probably wouldn't be like, okay, there's like 5, but they're like specific to that level, and then you get a new set of 5 and so on. Right. You probably just have to design it really carefully. You probably have to say, and also like, you know, hold your cards to your chest too. Like, as far as like the cannon, you know, you probably wouldn't get like the cannon and the skeleton right away, because you're giving the player like 2 massive traversal options super early, instead of like spacing them out and creating like a nice learning curve and like a nice sense of progression. So it would take more thought, but yeah, I would still do it that way, I think. Yeah, it would. I imagine it would have to be a lot tighter, so much more problem solving, troubleshooting, seeing what corner does this transformation not work if it's coming at this world. Yeah, that's tough. That's quite challenging. I do love that. I mean, it goes for a lot of the jiggies, but even with the transformations on top of that, to kind of go off what you're saying of me trying to figure out how to open the treasure chest. And I kind of liked that it took trying out different transformations to figure out, how do I open this sucker? What dots have I not connected yet? And Plonk was just there waiting for me to smash him open. I was looking back at some of the footage. I'm like, wow, I had Plonk for quite a while before I finally tried just punching them open. Yeah. What do you know? But I like that. I like that there's, because we have more than one transformation to work with, it kind of has the player, at least from my perspective, just kind of the gears are turning. How am I supposed to solve this? What is the method of doing this? I remember, again, with Plonk that was trying to open up Nipper's the shell, and I was like, oh, I know, it's got to be the cannon. We just shoot right through it, only for me to immediately hit with a brick wall. Oh, no, that was not it at all. All right,
let's come back to that then.
And even that is something that I kind of wish that I did differently in hindsight, because everybody tries that. It's not just you. Everybody's first instinct is, oh, I use the cannon, obviously, to smash open this cracked wall. And I guess, like, I mean, to play devil's advocate, you know, I guess you could say most people try that and then they just go, oh, okay, that's not what I'm supposed to do. That's fine. And they move on. But I don't know. I feel like as a designer, like, the thing I want to shoot for is, like, if something feels intuitive and like it should work, then it probably will. And that was kind of like the design philosophy of the game in general. And it's something that's like the antithesis of Banjo-Kazooie, where, like, often in Banjo-Kazooie, things have like one solution that isn't necessarily like obvious, or it's like take this very rigid path or like set of actions to get a jiggy, and they're not necessarily like what you would naturally think that you need to do. Like maybe there's another thing that feels like it would work, but it's not what the designers thought of or not what they want you to do, so it doesn't work. So I wish that was handled a little bit differently. Originally it could smash open the wall, and I had changed that because it felt like at that time Plonk did not have enough to do. So I said, okay, the cannon can smash open like chests and like wood things and whatever, but then like after a certain threshold of like tougher walls, the cannon cannot, and you need to use Plonk. But I don't know, there's probably a more graceful way that could have been handled, because it always like drives me crazy when I'm watching playthroughs and like everyone does that and they're like, oh, that doesn't work.
Well, I've never had an original thought, it seems.
But can't make everything perfect, I guess. So
yeah, it sounds like it's part of the process of wanting to direct the player one way, and some batch might, but there's gonna be a batch that try a different method.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we briefly talked about it on the stream. It does feel like some time has passed since the original Banjo-Kazooie game. And we get a sense of that with Skeleton, Snacker. There's some dialogue with the crabs about Nipper and like their ancestry. And like you were showing earlier, some parts of the world that have changed a little, which is a nice way to kind of nod like, hey, like some time has passed, things will change a bit. I'm curious if you have a duration of time that has passed since the original game.
So I don't want to disappoint people too hard, but there is no real number.
Yeah. Fair.
So I'll basically, the idea was basically that, yes, this is the same place. I didn't want to do like a multiverse thing where it's like, oh, it's like an alternate, because then it's kind of like, it's not as satisfying if you don't feel like you're in the place that you were in Banjo-Kazooie 1. So yeah, some time has passed. Could be 2 years, could be 50 years. I'll basically just I'll get into kind of like what I wanted to do story-wise, and maybe that's like enough context for people who are interested to kind of like fill in the info for themselves. But the story segment of the game that got cut, and I have briefly talked about it online before, is basically that this would take place, I don't know, maybe like a couple years or something after like Banjo-Tooie, and it would start out where basically Banjo-Kazooie are just like chilling in Spiral Mountain. They're just hanging out in Banjo's house. It's winter this time around. And when they're in there, they hear basically like a loud crash or some kind of explosion. They're alarmed, they go out to investigate, and Spiral Mountain would basically function as a tutorial the way it does in the other areas, or sorry, in the other games. Mumbo is not with you yet, so it's still just Banjo-Kazooie, so it would basically be a tutorial for just your basic moves for people who haven't played Banjo, or just, I mean, people who have played Banjo. This game controls a little bit differently, so it could you know, be a little playground for you to ease into things. And then you would find Mumbo, who is basically just a head lying in the snow, and they were like, "What did you do?" And he was basically goofing around with different spells, new spells, and he accidentally removed his body. He's just a head now. So they're like, okay, we got to help him out. We gotta get his body back. So the only idea they have is to get some jiggies and basically like put him together to like magically like make a new body for him. And they go, oh, well, the layer is blocked off and, you know, there's no way to get in there, basically. If Mumbo goes, I know a way, there's basically this little like cave passage that you go into, and this cave passage would serve as the Mumbo tutorial for all of his abilities. So you would have segments where there's like a small opening in the cave, and that's where you would see a pebble next to it, and Mumbo would be like, oh, I can help you transform into that pebble. And then so it was kind of like a way to like use the environment in a way to like organically introduce those mechanics one by one and kind of like walk you through them. So you would like become a rock to get through that small space, etc. And then you would go through this passage to end up into the Treasure Trove Cove room of the lair, where they're like, okay, we made it in. This is the only level we have access to. We're going to go in there. And then you would go in, you would collect as many jiggies as possible, and when you got presumably all of them, there was going to be like a little gag where they put together all the jiggies and it like makes him a body, but it's like a comically undersized body. So he kind of looks like a bobblehead, and he's like, I actually prefer being without a body anyways, this is fine. And so it's just kind of a funny way to like give a little bit of resolution, but also keep him in his headless state so you can keep playing the game that way and just kind of goof around the level if you want to. So yeah, I mean, the story idea that I had in terms of like time passed, you could say that it progressed in real time, that it's been like, if you factor in Banjo-Tooie and then the time jump after Banjo-Tooie that this game would have had, maybe in real time it would be like 4 years, but you could also say that, like, I don't know, something got messed up with the portal to the level in the destruction of the lair or whatever, and it like warped time here somehow. And because I mean, there are some things that are really bizarre in the level, like if you look at the underwater, for example, there's a lot of abyss, whereas in the original game this would have all been filled in with sand. So it's like, why is that completely different? And so, I mean, there's no real answer. Like, you could say, oh, it took centuries of time and that's why the level is completely different now. Or you could just say, oh, it's been 4 years and I accept that it's this different because of video game logic, it's fine. So, yeah, I mean, maybe I would have like picked an exact number if I had developed that fully. I might have just kept it ambiguous and just implied that time has passed in some way. But yeah, that's the background basically.
Loved hearing about the background. I didn't realize how much more was in plan. I mean, I knew that there was some content that had to be cut. Like, I remember seeing on Twitter about a snowy spiral mountain. I love hearing that you had a full-blown story ready to start, at least. I don't know how much was developed, but I love hearing more of the backstory of just how we even got here as Banjo.
Yeah, for sure.
That's pretty sweet. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to the game, but either had to cut or couldn't even start to begin with?
Yeah, let me think about that. So obviously the story stuff, there was a sub area that I wanted to include specifically for the rock that I think was going to be right here. Where in the game normally, as it is right now, you just go in there and there's a jiggy, and I wanted to initially have it be a larger challenge, where kind of like an obstacle course, but for the rock, because the rock is so much fun to control to me. Like, I love using the rock, and it feels like there's never really... Like, the thing I immediately thought of is like how like Mario 64 has like slider, like that sub area where you're like going down the slide. I was like, oh, that would be so much fun if you have the rock and you're like rolling down like this track or something. So I had this whole crazy idea for a thing where you would like drop into here and it would send you into this like subterranean like mine or something, and then like it's like below water level, and then like the water is kind of like dripping and pouring in like through the cave ceiling. And it would be like this mine shaft where you have these like basically like track segments and stuff like that, and these like carts that are obstacles, and you're basically like rolling down and you're trying to get to the end in time to reach a jiggy within a time limit. It just never happened because it was huge. The tricky thing about stuff like that, like if you think of like Slider from Mario 64 as an example, those things that involve like massive amounts of speed involve a lot of space, and space means set dressing. And like Mario usually gets away with that stuff by having like abstract zones. So like you get into a lot of those Mario places and it's like, okay, the background is just like a black void, or it's
some kind of abstract background that they reuse for things, but I didn't want to do that because this is Banjo, and Banjo kind of feels more grounded in like a real world.
Yeah.
So it had to kind of feel like, okay, this is like an environment that's actually like real and it's part of the level. And it just would have ended up being a lot of work, so it didn't happen.
I see.
I guess something that I would have liked to have changed was how the Jinjos work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because there's basically, what's the best way to put it? So like I had noticed at one point in development that you have the clammers, right? The golden clams that want to be fed with the eggs, which they're kind of like a riff on Croctus from the first game in Bubble Gloop Swamp. Right. Originally it was that you had to get all 5 and then you got the Jiggy instead of the current system where it's 2 and then a Jiggy and then 3 more and another Jiggy. And that just seemed like it was very inconsistent with the amount of effort you have to put in for other Jiggies, where other Jiggies are a lot more like immediate and you can get them within like, I don't know, like a minute to 3 minutes or something of effort. And yeah, the clamor was just kind of like something that took like forever. And it was like one of the ones that you always got like towards the end. It was just so much work to get that Jiggy. And it's especially frustrating when the Jiggies are directly tied to the progression system where they unlock more things for you. So you want to kind of have like a breadcrumb trail of like stuff that you're giving to the player periodically to help them work towards that goal. And so I fixed that with the clamor, and then I realized after, okay, there's kind of the same issue with the Jinjos, where every other Jiggy in the level kind of has this thing where, you know, again, like they're fairly immediate. They're kind of like bite-sized challenges. The Jinjos are like this large-scale challenge. So it's like you're getting 1 unit of the Jiggy, like the value is the same as the other Jiggies, but it's way more work. So it's like a weird inconsistency. So it really felt like an opportunity for just making that like an entirely different systemic thing, where like the Jiggies, or sorry, not the Jiggies, the Jinjos would just serve a different purpose, where you like rescue them, and I don't know, they like can sell things to you, or they basically gather somewhere, kind of almost like Banjo-Tooie style, where you rescue them.
Oh, I see.
And they like go back to their house, but instead of just like get them all and get a Jiggy, like maybe it would be some different separate purpose where it's like, oh, you can buy like cosmetics from them, or I don't know, something like that.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Because they feel like such like a unique, distinct thing. I mean, like they're characters, right? Like they have personality and they're in every level of the original game, and there's so many of them, so it almost feels like they kind of should belong to like a different thing entirely. And almost like, I don't know if you've played Kirby and the Forgotten Land, but almost like the Waddle Dees, how you like rescue those guys and they like repopulate the village, and that gives you access to more things.
Right.
The problem is like that's harder to do on a smaller scale, because like the scale of the game just like doesn't necessarily like support that. Like there's not even that much currency to use. There's just 120 notes, so it's like it would kind of be like a waste of a system. But even still, I mean, it being there in the current iteration is makes me unhappy, because it's not exactly what I'd want it to be. I'd still probably prefer that it's something different, because there is still like that value inequality there. But yeah, I mean, other than that, in terms of like new additions, just polish, honestly. Like I had this problem where, I mean, the game was probably done for like 2 months, but I kept being like, oh, I can make this better, and oh, I can make this better, and that never ever stops.
Thing. No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
I guess
you
maybe
have to draw the line.
Yeah, I guess maybe the only other thing I can think of would be some of the original moves from the first game, because the moveset is stripped back in this game, and deliberately so, A, for scope reasons, and B, just because some of the moves that they have in the original, I was like, okay, the transformations kind of fill that role, the shock jump pads being one thing. I wish that it could have been like a bit more robust in general, like if you had the backflip jump or something, because there's not like just a nice clean way to just like jump up like vertically a bit higher. Like you can do a thing where, and I can even demonstrate it right now, where like you can charge up Mumbo and you can do this.
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's like a little bit more of like it's not as obvious of a maneuver, and it doesn't have like, there's no dedicated move to just like go higher than you normally do with your normal jump. So yeah, I wish that like, or even just like a ledge grab, just like little polished things, like if you miss a ledge, he like grabs on and he climbs up or something.
I see.
Just stuff like that. But yeah, polish, more abilities, some cut areas. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, that's basically it.
Those additions would probably require at least a couple more months now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the story
Yeah.
stuff alone would have been huge, right? Because it's like a whole nother level, and then like animations, music probably for the story segments. The other stuff, maybe not as much so. The Jinjos would have been, again, like given the scope of the game, I don't really know how I could do a change there. The extra abilities would have been the most attainable. It still would have added probably like a few more weeks. So I was like, I'm getting really burnt out. Like I'm just not going to do it. But yeah,
understandable.
For sure. Like good time investment for any of those things.
Yeah, easily. Well, I see the potential with the Jinjos, but I'm still happy that they are at least in the game and still function like the original Kazooie game. Sometimes I hate deadlines, but they are kind of nice in this example where, I mean, not that you had a deadline, but a way to just be like, okay, we gotta call it because I can't spend another year working on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was entirely self-imposed. The initial estimate is I was like, 9 months. I'm going to take 9 months. It took almost 50% longer than that.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I don't want to spend just a significant fraction of my life just working on this thing. I want to do other things. So,
well, I praise you for, at the very least, getting the majority of what you initially wanted in the game. We could always tack on, one more thing near the end, but to have the original vision and the majority of it still be there in the game, that's huge. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
Are there other just kind of like big hurdles that you were faced with while you were developing this?
I can't really stress how difficult it was to do the transformation system. That was like, still gives me nightmares. Like, on every level, like I had talked before about like just the technical, like logistical challenges of that, of like, okay, you have things like the character sliding on slopes or going through doorways, and you need to do that for every character, which just adds so much work. And there's just a lot of problems to solve in that way. But it was also super duper difficult to just nail down how the system was going to work in the first place, as far as like, how would the information be conveyed to you? Like, how do you convey how many collectibles you need? And then, like, how do you actually gain the transformations, et cetera, et cetera? It had started out as basically, like, in the earliest iteration, Mumbo was basically, he was a wand instead of a floating head.
Wow.
In the original game, if you see, like, he has his wand, and his wand has like a skull on it, and the skull, I'm pretty sure, is just like the same model as his skull, like, or at least in the promo art it is. And so I had this idea where he like got cursed somehow, where like his consciousness or his head or whatever got put into that skull, so he's like a talking head on a stick. And the idea is that like Banjo would have the wand with him, and he would do the Mumbo magic stuff while holding the wand. And like Mumbo would also like be there though, because he is the wand, right? If that makes sense. It's like kind of crazy. That just had like a variety of issues where, I mean, it had issues as far as like, there was like an animation hurdle where I was like, okay, if Banjo is always holding the wand, then that makes like animating certain things really tricky, where one of his hands isn't freed up all the time. And so I was like, okay, sometimes then I'm just gonna have it be like something you toggle, where you basically, like, for the most part, he's like in your backpack, but then you can press a button and it toggles Mumbo being taken out. And then like there are certain abilities you can't use while you're in that like wand holding mode. And it felt like very not elegant. Like I didn't like that there was like an entire button dedicated to toggling this mode that you ultimately only use to just like gain transformations. And then there was also the issue of like, I wanted Mumbo to feel like he was kind of like part of the party, he was part of the group, and it always kind of sucked that like he's just being like swung around all the time because of like Banjo's walk cycle. And then he's also like facing away from the camera, so you like never see his face, and if you toggle him away, he's not even visible, he's just in your backpack. And so that wasn't working. There was another element of the transformation system where it wasn't that you would like get enough jiggies and then an enemy or object would start flashing green and then you like hold the button on them or whatever, because at that point the motion control system hadn't existed yet. It was just going to be the wand, and then
really?
Yeah, and then it would pretty much be that like enemies, you would defeat them, and they would like drop like some kind of trace, so like the hog swash or pirate or whatever. When you defeat them, they would like drop a hat on the ground, and then the hat would be the thing you walk up to, push a button, and then you would kind of like receive the transformation data or whatever from the thing they left behind. And that also wasn't really working great because I was like, well, again, just feels very not elegant if you don't have enough to actually get the thing yet, and then all these enemies are like dropping objects that you can't do anything with.
I see, okay.
And then it felt really lame to say that, I don't know, they like only spawn when it's relevant, because then it feels unnatural, and it's like, well, why would that happen? It's not consistent. It's like they're only spawning because the game wants them to spawn now because it's convenient for me.
Wow.
Yeah, so there was like a ton of iteration that entire system went through, where it was always like, oh, that doesn't feel quite right, and then making a tweak based off of that. So it took me all the way from 0 motion controls and Mumbo being like a wand, and transformations are gained from like enemies like basically having drops after they die that you walk up to, all the way to like now Mumbo's a floating head and there's a motion control system, and enemies don't drop things, like you just walk up and you hold a button, and like all of that stuff was just gradually evolved over time, over just various iterations, and that was like super duper difficult, and that changed like a lot throughout development.
These are the things that like we're not seeing at all. Like we're seeing the final product once we're playing it, but like we're not aware of the complexities of just like, well, how do we want the mechanics to work, and going through different iterations of it's just not quite hitting the way you want it to. It's not flowing the way that you had in your head. I can't imagine how long it took to finally find what works, but I think you found the best method, the one that feels the most correct.
I appreciate that. It took too long. It took. I think, I mean, the project, because that idea was always part of the project, and the project started September 2024. Geez, that was a long time ago now. That's crazy.
Yeah.
September 2024, and then, I mean, all of that whole system probably didn't get finalized until August, was probably the last iteration that I did where it was like final, and I was like, okay, this is the system. This is good.
Wow.
Even like when the motion controls first were introduced, that was because again, I was having all these issues with Mumbo of like not only wanting you to be able to see him, and like he feels more like he's part of a group, but also that he feels like he has more of a purpose. So, but like without introducing a mechanic that like radically changes the game. So I was like, what are some small actions you could do that would be helpful, but don't like alter the whole experience? And I was like picking up collectibles from a distance, kind of like Bowser Jr. in Bowser's Fury, or the Shockwave idea was one that I was really attached to, where I was like, oh, you could break boxes with it, you could like use it to like launch yourself up high, you can stun enemies. I was like, that's a kind of a cool, nice utility move to have. And so that stuff I attached to Mumbo, and then it just felt like the most reasonable way to do that was the motion control system, because then like you can essentially like send him wherever in the level, and you don't have to resort to, oh, I have to like hold a button and then that makes like a crosshair come up and then I like aim where I want Mumbo to go. And I mean, I could have done that as like an option, or like maybe that could have worked somehow, but the motion controls just felt like such a satisfying, like simple, elegant solution of like, I don't have to like control the camera to like tell him where to go. I can just point, send him somewhere, and in that way it's just super immediate, and like it's a bit tricky at first, but once you get used to it, it's quite effective. The very first iteration of that was where there was like a timer mini game thing where you would hold the button, and instead of just him charging up and then you let go, it was almost like, those like aiming video games and some, timing mini games and some shooters where like to reload, there's like a bar that travels, and if you like press a button at like the right time when it like hits a certain spot, that kind of thing. There was a mini game where Mumbo, you had to basically do that, where there was like a meter going back and forth, and you had to like time it in the middle, and then he would do the shockwave. And it was the same thing for transformations, where when you could gain a transformation, you would do that same action, but it was a more narrow timing that you had to meet. And to me, and this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where everything is going to feel way too easy to you, that felt like the right amount of difficulty to me, because I was like, oh, it's so lame if you just give that to people for free. Like, it's no fun if you can just hold a button and then it just does it for you. I was like, that's no fun. There's no skill involved in that. And then I watched people play and realized it was a disastrous decision. And it's already like a lot for people to manage. Like motion controls are already like one thing that I guess like it's not intuitive to a lot of people. And then you're also like wrestling against the camera, and you're also just trying to wrestle with like understanding how all this works in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was. I'm kind of like I'm rambling a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it was like it just goes to illustrate just like iteration after iteration that whole system needed to go through. I mean, it was never as simple as like, oh, now there's motion controls and that fixed everything. It was like, no, that had to go through like a ton of different things before like even that felt right too.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah,
and this is tough. It's tough because like I think motion controls have come a long way, though it's still so much like a preference thing.
Yeah.
If this was like, say, on the Wii, I might not have had a positive experience, but I feel like I'm playing on the PS4. I felt like overall it flowed pretty well, fairly naturally, and I would say overall, it flowed in a way that it should have. I know there was at least one instance where I was trying to get a transformation, and I was getting rocked. I was getting just tossed left and right by the enemies. But that was also my one brain fart moment of like, oh wait, how do I get the transformations again? I'll have to say pleasantly surprised by just how tough some of these enemies are, or at least when I'm not 100% focused on fighting them, they were tough.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very interesting just to hear the behind the scenes of setting up something as simple as the transformation system. I mean, not simple, but you just want Banjo to turn into a fish or a rock, and it's going through different iterations of, well, what makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, on paper, it sounds easy peasy. It's like, okay, yeah, there's a game where it's like, think Banjo-Kazooie, but there's a bunch of transformations, and then you can become them anywhere. It's like, oh, perfect. I've already done it on paper. And then when you start doing it, you realize like, oh, there's like a million little nuances to like those things are big. Like they feel like little nuances, and they are, and they're easy to miss. But yeah, there's a lot of things like that are just really tricky to nail down.
Wow. That's crazy, man. I'm happy that it worked out in the end. Seriously, I mean, I was constantly smiling during the playthrough and just being like, this is working so well. I just love that Mumbo's always here. I can transform so long as I have the magic, the energy for it. I can do it at any time at ease. Loved it. And I said it in the stream. When I was down to the last couple of jiggies, I was sad that it was almost over. It's like, I don't want it to be done. I'm ready for more. Where's the next world?
That's always the tough thing is because a lot of people feel that way, and it really makes my heart ache that, you know, this isn't something that I can make like a full length thing. I mean, I would love to. That's the dream, is like, make a game like this, but it doesn't have to just stop after one level. You can just keep playing, you know. What a crazy thought, but
it doesn't hurt to leave them wanting more.
Yeah, that's true. I'm really proud of the level of quality and fun and polish that is here. So, I mean, that's good.
Absolutely. You should. I know you answered this multiple times on Twitter. Just to give it another answer here, would you make another Banjo fan game, or if you could, official game?
Yeah, so
Banjo Threeie.
Yeah, as far as fan games, it is unfortunately a resounding no. Just because.
Nah, forget it.
I mean, it's interesting because the project was like super fun. I mean, I'm a huge Banjo fan who is like equally sad about, you know, there not being a new game in however many years. So it was a really, really fun, rewarding challenge to make it come to life from like a modern perspective. There is a point where you just have diminishing returns, and I think I would just hit a point where working on this stuff, I would just be like, man, this isn't my IP. This isn't something that's like an official project. It's not something that people can like go, I don't know, buy at their local GameStop and enjoy to like the fullest degree, where it's like the level of quality and polish and everything that you would expect and get out of like a true studio experience or AAA experience or whatever. And I mean, that's like where my sights are set. That's what I want to do. Like, I would love to make big, not necessarily even big, just quality commercial full-length games. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not, I love this franchise, but it's not something that I love enough where I'm going to like dedicate, again, like a significant portion of my life to
doing unofficial projects. And some people, that's worth it for them. And I love that there are people who dedicate themselves to that, to kind of like keeping it alive. It would be a different story if I could do it officially, right? Like if there was some team that already existed or got thrown together to do basically the Banjo Threeie people want, I would drop everything. I would be like, yes, sign me up.
Sign me up. Yeah.
I've thought about this for years. I know what I want to do for it. I know I can make it good. Like I have the confidence that I could do it well, but you know, wanting to do it and being able to do it are two different things.
Yes.
I don't want to say it'll never happen, you know, never say never. Like I would love if that opportunity came up one day, but yeah, unofficially, or as far as like unofficial projects are concerned, yeah, this is probably the last of it for me, for Banjo at least.
No, I think you got your hands dirty and made something remarkable and very memorable. I think it's fair that in order to go through with another Banjo like this, it would have to be something more official like that, like you were saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what people deserve anyway, you know? Like I don't know. My thought process is just like, I mean, as good as this was, I don't want to just do this, but again, or maybe like a little bit better. Like I want to give people the real deal. Like if I were to do it, and no, that's just how I feel, because otherwise it's just not gonna quite be the same thing, you know. So
that's understandable, and I imagine it would feel so good to be a part of like a team of people, a team of like dedicated. If this is your full-time job, making a Banjo game in an office or whatever. That's that next step to make a full-blown game with multiple worlds and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
This question comes directly from my community, and I think it's hysterical. It's awesome. Truly amazing to see that Rare themselves acknowledged it, and previous developers of the Banjo games, they praised Mumbomania. My community is asking, how does it feel to have made more Banjo games than Rare has in the past 15 years?
You know, bad. To be like, in all honesty, I mean, because what I mean is, again, as much as I've loved making the thing, I don't want to live in a world where there's no Banjo, there's no official Banjo, right? So it's not, I'm not really like smug about it, where I'm like, oh, I did what they couldn't, you know. It's more so just like, I'm a little bit like sad that this is just the timeline that we're in, where people feel like they need to do stuff like this for Banjo to get any attention. The other thing I want to point out, like, I want to use this as an opportunity to tell people to not dogpile on Rare, right? Because I think the thing I think a lot of people don't realize is, like, not only do they not hold the IP, as far as I'm aware, I believe that's Microsoft. I mean, the same people who worked on the Banjo games, I mean, they're not really like at Rare anymore. If they are at Rare, they're not like, you know, the people who would have a say on that. So, like, clearly they're doing their own thing. Like, they want to do something different. Like, it would be crazy to me for someone to make a project and then they leave and then the IP isn't even yours, and then everyone goes, yeah, but you have to care about this. It's like, well, why do you have to care about that? Right. Like, obviously, like, they're doing Sea of Thieves and whatever else they're working on, and obviously it has an audience, because otherwise they wouldn't still be working on it. So I don't really think that, like, anyone's to blame necessarily. Like, people even point to Microsoft and they go, oh, well, you know, if Microsoft isn't going to do anything, like, why don't they at least hand over the rights to someone else who wants to do it? And I mean, that's an easy thing to say, right? Like,
right.
It's a whole different thing to like in theory, sure, yeah, but like, does the studio or team exist that like has the budget, has the interest, is currently available, wants to go through all of the talks and whatever else you have to do? I mean, that's like, ultimately, like, a lot that you have to do for something that isn't even like, I mean, Banjo is great. I love Banjo, and a lot of people know about Banjo, but Banjo isn't like Mickey Mouse or something, right? Like, it's not something that like IP holders or like other people are like dying to, you know, get their hands on, because it's like a gold mine, right? Like, it could be. I think it has the potential to be, but it only has the potential to be if you make another game good. Like, it can't just coast on nostalgia or the IP, because if you just coast on that and the game isn't good enough, like it's not going to reach the people it needs to. So I mean, the game needs to be good. So it's like, again, it's an easy thing to say, oh, just give the IP to someone who wants to make a game and they'll do a good job and then Banjo will be back. Easy as that. But I think it's a lot more complicated than that. So
easily, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think people probably like point fingers more than they need to, like Rare and Microsoft, and a situation can be sad and unfortunate and not necessarily anyone's fault, you know? Even if people want to point fingers at Microsoft for buying out Rare, I mean, even the original creators, or at least Greg Mayles, I believe, has said that like there were never actually any real plans to do Banjo Threeie. So it's like, even if Rare stayed with Nintendo, you know, that game probably would have never materialized anyway. And maybe Nintendo would have like done something else with Banjo. Maybe they would have like, you know, had a different team and, you know, kept it alive somehow. But I mean, who's to say? You know, like you can be upset about hypotheticals all you want, but at the end of the day, if everything in like someone's imaginary scenario came true, like it might still not be like the outcome that they want, right? Like even Nintendo has a lot of franchises that, like, even though they're pretty good about giving love to a lot of their older ones, I mean, there are a lot that don't get that treatment. So yeah, I don't know. Those are my thoughts on that situation. Again, you know, I would love to be in a world where there are more of these games, and it makes me kind of sad that like this is the only one in however many years, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, this is fantastic perspective, and you've raised some amazing points. It's very much easier said than done. A future Banjo game, whatever that title might be, it shouldn't just be pumped out because a lot of people want it. It should be created because the people / company that would be behind it are passionate about it and want to make that happen. I'm curious, do you think if Banjo-Tooie never had the bit of dialogue, whatever, I'll see you in Banjo Threeie, do you think if that just never happened, would there be this huge demand for more Banjo? Yes, more demand for Banjo, but like I feel like they're stuck on this cliffhanger.
Yeah, I definitely think that would be the case. Like what I mean is like if the cliffhanger was never there would still be demand, because that's just the nature of these things. Like, I mean, old game that's beloved and it's kind of gotten forgotten, and people have nostalgia for it, and people think about what could have been, and you know, all that sort of thing. But yeah, I definitely think that, I mean, just that one line alone, whenever people are talking about Banjo Threeie or Banjo being revived or anything like that, that's like almost always cited. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know what the demand would be like had that not been in there, or if people would have like as much bitterness, because like there's a lot of bitterness again towards like Rare and Microsoft, and I wonder if it would be more of like people kind of yearn for that, but they are not like pointing fingers and like blaming about it, you know?
Well said. Yeah. You know, it's tough because it's like, I don't want to live in a world where we don't have Mumbomania, because I generally love the experience so much, but at the same time, it's like, but if we had more Banjo games, we wouldn't have had Mumbomania. I don't know. It's a toss-up.
I know. And I prefer to, I don't know, be constructive about the situation. Like, I don't want to sit here and, like, I could be upset all day, every day of my life if I wanted to, about there not being Banjo, because it was such a big part of my childhood and everything, and I could do that. But you know, what would it do for me? Like, I much prefer, because I love making video games, I love game design, I love the art and craft of video games, and I love Banjo, so I would prefer to use my skills to try and do something about it. Like, part of, you know, the reason I made this project was I want to drum up excitement for this franchise and like show what it could be, and you know, what it could look like in a modern context, and the fact that people still care about it, and the people who don't know about it can still have a ton of fun with it, even if they have no nostalgic attachment. I like to use my abilities in that way, and you know, I would hope that like I'd like to try and meet like-minded game designers who also, you know, care about the franchise, and like my hope is that the stars align one day, and like, you know, something like that does happen, and it's only gonna happen if like you make moves like this where you're, you know, pushing towards it and you're showing the love for the franchise and like experimenting with like, you know, new ways in which it could go. But if it doesn't happen, you know, it won't be the end of my world. There's still great things that I can work on, and there are still things that I can be very proud of and very fulfilled doing. So
100%. And I'm very happy that this was the reaction from Rare versus what could have been if it was a Nintendo title.
Yeah.
They'd be like, shut it down.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a lot of people who were immediately kind of doom and gloom that were like, oh, what's the point in doing all this? It's going to get copyright struck in 12 hours or whatever. I think a lot of people didn't realize that Banjo isn't actually Nintendo, and Microsoft and Rare tend to be pretty relaxed about these things, which is the only reason I was comfortable with doing the project in the first place. Technically, it's a gamble. Like, anytime you're doing anything with an IP that isn't yours, you know, you're borrowing something without asking, basically, and like hoping for goodwill. And I mean, even if that happened, like, I got an enormous amount of just gratification making it an experience, you know, like I talked about before. So it would still be fine. I would be upset, but it wouldn't be wasted, you know.
That's good. That's what we want.
Yeah.
That's all the questions that I have for you. Is there anything in the game that we didn't really get to touch over that you'd like to kind of show last minute?
I don't think so. I mean, I can take a quick peek around.
Yeah, since this will be probably my last time seeing the game from the creator perspective. I just love everything about the behind the scenes.
Yeah. I guess what I can kind of showcase, it isn't to do with like the game as directly, but if you're curious to kind of see like how like sculpting and stuff works in Dreams, like how a lot of these assets are created, I can just kind of like demo really quickly. So basically, like, the way Dreams does it is you basically have like a set of shapes like cube, cylinder, sphere, cone, etc. And you're basically just like adding and subtracting these shapes in various ways. That is the backbone of all of it, right? So if you want like a bird with like a beak, you know, you might say, okay, it's going to be a blue bird. We have a sphere, and then we're going to put a cone, and the cone is going to be yellow. And it's basically that sort of thing. And, you know, you could say, okay, I want like eye holes. So you would subtract and you would do that, and then you would like place another sphere for an eye. And that's kind of like, the gist of it. And there's a lot of like, kind of like, basically additional tools on top of that add a lot of nuance. So you have like a mirror widget. So like I don't have to like, do the exact same thing on the opposite side. Like this is really useful for like characters and that kind of thing. You have like blending options. So I can like do this and then it kind of like smooths them out. Yeah, and then same thing with subtracting. It kind of like does like a softer shape. And you can kind of like set the level of that, as you can see. And then all of the texturing is just spray painting, basically. So like you're just painting on top, and it has like the same blend tools, right? Where like I can set this to 0 blend and you have this nice sharp shape, or I can do full blend and it's kind of like softer. And everything is done using that tool set, basically. So like, I mean, even Banjo, like I can scope into Banjo and you can kind of like take apart his face piece by piece, which is kind of which is kind of funny. And then he starts looking real goofy. Like you can see there's like a donut in there. There's spheres. There's yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's it's a very precise process.
Wow.
So
look what you've done to our boy.
I know.
Wow.
So that can get tricky.
No idea.
There are certain things, like in some ways it's like very, very convenient. Because with 3D modeling, like you don't have to deal with all of the technical elements of 3D modeling and texturing and all of that you would on like a PC. Like in this, if I want a sphere, like I can just make a sphere. And in that way, it's like it's very immediate and gratifying. It's very easy. Like all of the terrain is basically made again by just doing that, where I'm just like sculpting out. Like if I want to like raise a surface a bit, I would like add a blend and then kind of like go below, make the shape really big, and then kind of just like raise it up a bit like that. Or if I want like
the sand climbing up these rocks. Again, I would just do a blend and kind of just peek behind the rock, so it kind of like
okay.
push, like this is just a sphere, but like back here it just kind of makes it look like it's climbing up like that. So yeah, it's just a lot of detailing everything using those tools. But
That's
yeah,
incredible.
it's awesome that like all of this stuff is just in here. It's just all in one. Again, like you're not using any separate softwares or anything. Like even if you just say like, I don't know, let's even take just like one of these crates, for example. Like if you want to, and you can even just like move the stuff around the environment like this, which is awesome as well. Like you can copy stuff and select a bunch of things and
so
move them
easy.
around. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And this is all using the motion controls as well. So it's kind of like second nature for me at this point, where I'm just like, you know, selecting things, scanning them around with my controller to move them. But yeah, I mean, even like the logic is as simple as like everything is basically stored in like folders, which are these thingies. I think there's probably already one. Yeah, there's a bit of logic already on here.
Oh wow. Okay.
But if something is like snapped, if a folder is like snapped to an object, anything in the folder is just gonna like automatically apply to the object. So
oh wow.
all of the logic is just like laid out like very intuitively. So you basically have like your sensors and inputs. This is like stuff that detects anything in the game, whether it's like a trigger zone or like a grab sensor, a movement sensor, any of that stuff. So those detect things, they detect signals. And then you have just like your processing. So if you want to like alter a signal, like if I wanted to like multiply an input for whatever reason or add to it. And then you have your output just making things happen in the game. So like I can just put a mover on this, and then I can open the mover and I can configure like where do I want it to move to. Like I could make it go straight up. I could make the strength really high, and it's just gonna go up if I hit play.
Oh, oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I could say, you know, like if I just add like a trigger zone, like I could just put a trigger, and I could say, okay, detect Banjo. Have Banjo named, and then I could set how big the trigger zone is, like so. And then I could say, okay, I only want this to go off if this this trigger zone is being hit. So then I would just link them up. You just plug them in. You just hit the output right here to the power, and then if I go into play mode, if this is working how it should, yeah. And because the zone is directly tied to the box, it like travels up with the box, and the box is gonna stop moving up at a certain point because the zone has gotten too high, right? You can kind of.
Oh wow.
Oh, there's a lot of wires going on here, but I can kind of. You can see the zone basically moving. So when it taps Banjo, it goes back up. So yeah, it's like very, very, yeah, I mean, it's like that's what all of this madness is.
Yeah.
And I just want to say too, like my logic is a nightmare. Don't anyone who's like, oh, I'm gonna like discover all of his like secrets looking at this video. This is gonna steer you wrong, okay? I had my
Don't copy that spaghetti.
Yeah, my collaborator, Piece of Craft, who would go in here sometimes, because he worked on the project like very like on and off. He had long periods where he was just doing his own thing, working on his own stuff, and he would jump back in sometimes and he would just ask if I needed any help, and he would go into some of the workspaces and be like, what did you do? And I was like, I don't know. It was, you know, I was just making something work in the moment, and I don't remember how any of it works, and it's a mess. But I mean, it's always like really cool to just like see it and like unfold everything. And yeah, this is all essentially like the code, and these are all labeled. Like this is the transformations folder, and like the health folder for Banjo, etc.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, so that's all like this is all just like Banjo stuff, and
oh wow.
If I displayed everything, it would cover like a huge area, but then like you have all of the like some of this stuff is really simple, like the vines have logic, or the thorns I should say, but I don't know where that is actually. There's probably a better example somewhere of like, oh, I guess like the notes would be a good example of like, these just need like a few things.
Okay.
So few things that like I don't even have a folder on here for like space reasons. Like I just have a few logic pieces that are put on here. They just do what they need to do, and you know, you're good. A player is a lot more complicated, so there's like a gazillion things in here.
Of course. Yeah.
But yeah,
this is like a more advanced Forge mode in Halo, but less complicated.
Yeah.
From what I gather.
Yeah. But it's, I mean, it's like so much fun. It's so much fun to use. I mean, because you can make, I mean, basically fully fledged, fun, polished video games, but using something that kind of itself feels like a game. Like it's very satisfying and intuitive, gives you nice feedback. You know, it's just all in one, very convenient. So I love using this thing. It makes me sad that I can't make actual games using it. I hope that one day like there are tools like this.
Yeah.
Because I mean it's so immediate and allows you to do so much as just one person. But
seriously, yeah, it's a start. Who knows what we'll have 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, it's true.
Hopefully get some folks interested in such a thing down the road.
Yeah. I mean, stuff like this, like I probably wouldn't be in game dev if it wasn't for this tool. Because I mean, I started goofing around with this when I was, I don't know, maybe like 17 or something. And I always wanted to make games when I was a kid, and I just didn't because I was like, oh, that's rocket science. Like, there's no way I'd know how to do that. This kind of made it approachable, but also like complex enough that I could really get into it. And I was like, hey, making games is actually a lot of fun. And the great part is the stuff that seems like rocket science, like coding and whatever, you don't actually need to do. Like there are roles where you can just be a designer and people do the technical stuff, and that concept was foreign to me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So this kind of like opened my eyes to like kind of just like looking more into it and realizing that like design on its own is a lot of fun and I don't have to worry about the other stuff. I slog through the logic in Dreams. Like it's not something I'm excited about, but it's approachable enough that like I can do it. I can make things happen generally. But it's not my favorite thing. And that was where a piece of craft was super helpful. Again, doing like I think he helped with like the Talon trot and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Because that was really tricky, like having basically like one character animate off of another character.
Right.
And kind of like swapping the controls and everything, that was a bit tricky.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, it's largely super fun, super approachable. It's really great.
I have had an amazing time playing the game and learning so much about the behind the scenes. I can't thank you enough for your time today. And of course, the insane amount of time that you put into making this magnificent game. I know my community is very, very thankful for your time as well. And gosh, thank you very much for Mumbomania.
Yeah, for sure, man. I loved being there. I loved watching, and I super duper appreciate. I mean, just you putting a spotlight on it and playing it and giving me an opportunity to ramble about it for a couple hours. I could probably do it for like a whole day. I mean, this was something where I kind of wanted to make like I kind of wanted to do like a behind the scenes or like making a video on my own time, but it's just, I mean, that takes writing and, you know, recording all sorts of stuff and editing, and like that's not something I do as like a regular part of my job. Like the most I do is like when I need to do a trailer, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna dust off my video editor and you know, I'll do this. But I mean, just having the opportunity to talk about it here is really nice. So I'm super looking forward to if you put something together in a video, I'll be very, very interested.
We easily could have gone on for another hour. There's just so much to love and share, but that's the full conversation. If you made it to the very end of this video, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.